The scalpel flies before the colonel's finger finds the trigger. Staff Sergeant Mari Ortega moves like liquid lightning, blade to wrist, first stand pivoting, defibrillator charging. 8 seconds. 4 armed men. The gentle medic who stammers when nervous just disarmed a Navy SEAL and holds a smoking pistol on her commanding officer. Nobody move. Her voice drops an octave. The El Paso accent vanishes. Who is she really? The Chinook's rotors kicked up a sandstorm that tasted like diesel and disappointment. Staff Sergeant Marisol Mari Ortega grabbed her duffel bag and medical kit, ducking under the rotor wash as she jogged toward the cluster of prefab buildings that made up Forward Operating Base Phoenix. The helicopter lifted off behind her, taking with it her last connection to the outside world. Another medic, huh? Colonel Raymond Brick Callahan emerged from the command post, his weathered face creased in what might have been a smile. At 52, he carried himself like a man who'd spent 3 decades earning respect the hard way. Hope you're tougher than you look, Sergeant. This ain't Walter Reed. Mari adjusted her glasses, non-prescription, part of the cover, and offered a nervous smile. I'll do my best, sir. Just want to help get these boys home safe. The El Paso accent came naturally now, months of practice making it feel real. Brick's expression softened. That's what I like to hear. You remind me of my daughter, same big heart. He gestured toward the medical tent. Come on, let me introduce you to the team. As they walked, Mari cataloged everything with peripheral vision trained by years of tactical operations. Guard towers at 10 and 2 o'clock. Mortar positions north of the helipad. Communications array vulnerable from the eastern ridge. Her fingers twitched toward the notebook in her cargo pocket, then stopped. Mari Ortega would be overwhelmed by the military hardware. She bit her lip and widened her eyes appropriately. Brick! A voice called from the medical tent. Please tell me that's my new nurse. Dr. Malcolm Shepard emerged, civilian clothes marking him as a contractor. Mid-40s, graying temples, hands that had clearly saved more lives than taken them. Mari felt an unexpected pang. This was exactly the kind of mentor she would have wanted if she'd actually been the person she was pretending to be. Staff Sergeant Ortega, Brick said, meet Doc Shepard. He'll show you the ropes. Just call me Mari, she said, extending her hand. And I'm actually a 68W, combat medic, not a nurse. Doc's handshake was firm, assessing. Even better. We need someone who can handle trauma. His eyes lingered on her face. You look young for a staff sergeant. Mari's pulse quickened, a dangerous question. I, tested out of some training early. Community college pre-med before I enlisted. She stumbled slightly over the words, letting her nervousness show. Well. A new voice, smooth and confident. Captain Blake Razor Trenholm sauntered over, his SEAL trident catching the afternoon sun. Tall, blonde, the kind of handsome that opened doors and closed minds. What do we have here? Mari felt her jaw clench and forced it to relax. Staff Sergeant Ortega, sir. You're way too pretty for this sandbox, darling. Razor's smile was all teeth. Don't worry though, I'll keep an eye on you. These army boys can get a little rough around the edges. I appreciate that, sir, but... Blake. His smile widened. Save the formality for the old man here. He winked at Brick, who chuckled indulgently. Mari forced a blush and looked down. Inside, Major Leona Zhu was calculating exactly how many seconds it would take to put this arrogant SEAL on his back. Okay. Blake. That's better. Hey, you like Mexican food? I know this great place in Kandahar, well, great for Afghanistan. Maybe when you get settled in. Captain Trenholm. The voice cut like a blade. Staff Sergeant Patricia Tank Morrison approached, her pale eyes cold as January. Built like a linebacker with a buzz cut that could cut glass, she radiated disapproval. Don't you have real soldiers to bother? Razor's jaw tightened. Just being friendly, Tank. Friendly. Tank's gaze swept over Mari dismissively. Another soft assignment for someone who probably can't handle real military work. She turned to Brick. Sir, with respect, we're closing this base in 72 hours. Why are we wasting resources on Sergeant Morrison? Brick's voice carried warning. The staff sergeant is here to help with casualties during retrograde. Show some professional courtesy. Tank's smile was arctic. Of course, sir. She looked back at Mari. Hope you can handle the sight of blood, medic. This isn't playing nurse back home. Mari felt something dangerous flicker behind her eyes and quickly looked away. I'll try not to disappoint you, Sergeant. As Tank stalked off, Doc shook his head. Don't mind her. She's got issues with anyone who doesn't carry a rifle for a living. Is that normal? Mari asked, genuinely curious about the dynamics she'd need to navigate. Tank thinks medical personnel are a liability, Brick explained. Old school infantry mindset. But don't let her get to you, kid. You're here to save lives, and that's the most important job on this base. Mari nodded, filing away everything she'd learned about the command structure, personalities, and tensions. Razor's ego, Tank's hostility, Brick's paternalism, Doc's genuine kindness, all useful intelligence wrapped in human complexity. Come on, Doc said, shouldering her duffel. Let me show you where you'll be bunking, then we'll get you oriented with our setup. Fair warning, it's pretty basic, but we make it work. As they walked toward the medical tent, Mari stumbled slightly on a loose board, catching herself with reflexes a half-second too quick before forcing herself to look clumsy. Sorry, still getting used to combat boots. Doc steadied her with a gentle hand. You'll get the hang of it. We all had to start somewhere. Mari smiled gratefully, already planning how she'd use each of these relationships to gather the intelligence she needed. But underneath the calculation, something unexpected stirred. These people genuinely cared about her welfare, even if they didn't know who she really was. That could become a problem. The morning sun streamed through the canvas walls of the medical tent, casting everything in warm amber light. Mari moved between the cots with practiced efficiency, checking on the 3 soldiers who'd come in overnight. Nothing serious, just the usual collection of cuts, sprains, and stomach bugs that plagued any military installation. How's that ankle feeling, Corporal Martinez? She asked, unwrapping the elastic bandage with gentle fingers. Better, Sergeant. You've got magic hands. The young soldier from 3rd Platoon winced as she probed the swelling. Doc Shepard said you might be able to get me back on patrol duty. Mari smiled, but her mind was already cataloging intelligence. 3rd Platoon meant perimeter security. What kind of patrol routes are you running these days? Same old boring stuff. Eastern Ridge, mostly. Though yesterday we had to double back when Martinez caught himself. Sorry, probably shouldn't be talking about operations. Of course not, Mari said quickly, her tone appropriately chastened. I just worry about you boys out there. She finished rewrapping his ankle. This should hold, but take it easy for another day. As Martinez hobbled out, Doc Shepard appeared with a steaming cup of coffee and a concerned expression. You're settling in well, he observed, settling into the folding chair beside her makeshift desk. The men like you. That's not always easy to earn around here. Mari accepted the coffee gratefully, real coffee, not the instant swill she'd expected. They're good soldiers. Just want to do right by them. That's exactly what I hoped to hear. Doc's smile was genuinely warm. I have to ask though, where did you learn to suture like that? The work you did on Private Jackson's leg yesterday was textbook perfect. Her pulse quickened, but Mari forced herself to look embarrassed. YouTube, actually. I know that sounds stupid, but I spent hours watching surgical videos before deploying. Wanted to be as prepared as possible. Doc chuckled. Not stupid at all. Shows initiative. He paused, studying her face. You remind me of myself at your age, eager to learn, maybe a little too serious about the work. Is that bad? Not bad. Just be careful not to burn yourself out trying to save everyone. The tent flap rustled, and Private Kenny Way stuck his head inside. "Sergeant Ortega? You said you'd show me how to properly apply a tourniquet today." Mari's face lit up, the first genuinely unguarded expression she'd allowed herself since arriving. "Of course. Come on in, Kenny." For the next 20 minutes, she walked Kenny through the proper application of a cat tourniquet, explaining pressure points and timing with the patience of a natural teacher. What she didn't mention was that she could apply one in under 10 seconds, or that she'd used them in combat more times than she cared to remember. "The key is not to hesitate," she explained as Kenny practiced on a training dummy. "In a real emergency, every second counts." "Like the golden hour thing?" "Exactly." Mari felt a genuine warmth. Kenny's eagerness reminded her of her younger brother, before the accident that had driven her to West Point. "You're getting it." As Kenny left, Sergeant First Class Rafael Calderon appeared in the doorway. Unlike the others, Rafe moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd seen real combat. His dark eyes missed nothing. "Mind if I come in, Sergeant?" "Of course. What can I do for you?" Rafe stepped inside, lowering his voice. "Just wanted to check on our new medic. How are you finding FOB Phoenix?" There was something in his tone, not suspicion exactly, but a careful probing. Mari kept her expression neutral. "Everyone's been welcoming. Still getting used to the routine. I noticed you ask a lot of questions." "Good questions." His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Shows you care about operational security." "I like to understand how things work," Mari said carefully. "Helps me do my job better." "Smart thinking." Rafe paused at the tent entrance. "Word of advice? Be careful who you trust around here. Not everyone is who they seem." After he left, Mari sat back in her chair, mind racing. Was that a warning, or a threat? Rafe was clearly more observant than the others. She'd need to be extra careful around him. The afternoon brought a steady stream of soldiers seeking treatment for minor ailments, each interaction an opportunity to gather intelligence. Mari learned about patrol schedules, supply deliveries, communication protocols, and personnel tensions, all while maintaining her cover as the caring medic who just wanted to help. Captain Razor stopped by around 1600, his usual swagger slightly subdued. "How's our Florence Nightingale doing?" he asked, that predatory smile back in place. "Just trying to keep everyone healthy," Mari replied, not looking up from her inventory sheets. "You know, I could show you some of our tactical medical training. SEAL medics learn some pretty advanced stuff." Mari's hands stilled on the clipboard. She could probably teach him a few things about tactical medicine, but Mari Ortega wouldn't know that. "That's very kind of you, Captain, but I wouldn't want to take up your time." "For a pretty lady? Time's not an issue." His hand brushed her shoulder as he leaned closer to look at her paperwork. "What's all this?" "Medical supply inventory. We're running low on a few things." Mari had actually discovered several suspicious discrepancies in the manifest, but now wasn't the time to reveal that knowledge. "Boring stuff. How about dinner instead? I know this great MRE that doesn't taste like cardboard." Before Mari could respond, Tank Morrison's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Captain Trenholm, don't you have actual military duties to attend to?" Razor straightened, his jaw tightening. "Just being friendly, Sergeant Morrison." "Save the friendliness for civilians," Tank replied coldly. She turned to Mari with obvious disdain. "And you might want to focus on medical work instead of socializing. Some of us take our jobs seriously." As Tank stalked away, Razor shook his head. "Don't mind her. She's got issues with anyone who doesn't eat nails for breakfast." That evening, as Mari organized her supplies for the next day, she reflected on the relationships she was building. Each person on this base represented a different challenge to recover, but also a potential source of intelligence. Doc Shepard's trust, Kenny's admiration, Brick's paternal protectiveness, Razor's unwanted attention, Tank's hostility, and Rafe's suspicious watchfulness, all pieces of a complex puzzle she needed to navigate. But underneath the mission parameters, something unexpected was happening. These people were becoming real to her in a way that complicated everything. For 3 years, she'd lived in the shadows of intelligence work, where human connections were tools to be used and discarded. Here, pretending to be Mari Ortega, she was remembering what it felt like to simply care about people. That could be dangerous. Emotional attachments compromised operational effectiveness. But as she watched Kenny practice his tourniquet technique outside the tent, his face serious with concentration, Mari found she didn't care. Some things were worth the risk. The explosion hit at 0947 hours, a thunderclap that shook dust from the rafters and sent coffee mugs crashing to the floor. Mari was cataloging medical supplies when the blast wave reached FOB Phoenix, followed immediately by the crackling voice over the comm system, "Maskell, Maskell, Maskell. All medical personnel to triage. Multiple casualties inbound." Mari dropped her clipboard and sprinted toward the landing zone, her training overriding the nervous medic persona she'd carefully constructed. 3 Humvees roared through the gates, their rear compartments filled with wounded soldiers from the morning patrol. Doc Shepard breathed as the first casualty was carried in, a young private with his left leg nearly severed below the knee. "Mari, I need you on arterial control." Without thinking, Mari snapped into combat medic mode. Tourniquet high and tight, 2 inches above the wound, she barked at a corpseman fumbling with the cat. "Kenny, get me 2 units of ONAG and start a large bore 4. Doc, that sucking chest wound needs immediate attention." Her hands moved with surgical precision, applying pressure dressings and hemostatic agents while simultaneously triaging incoming casualties. The chaos that paralyzed others energized her. This was what she'd trained for, what she lived for. Sergeant Ortega called Corporal Williams, the squad medic who'd been riding with the patrol. "How'd you know to prep the chest seal before I even called it?" Mari's hands never stopped working, but her mind stumbled. She'd spotted the pneumothorax from the patient's breathing pattern before the obvious symptoms presented. Lucky guess, she managed. Saw him favoring that side. Doc Shepard glanced up from intubating another patient. "That wasn't luck. That was experience. Where did you say you trained before this?" "Walter Reed," Mari replied automatically, then caught herself. "I mean, I did some rotations there during AIT." But Doc's eyes were sharp, assessing. "This is textbook level 2 trauma surgery, Mari. Advanced combat life support protocols. That's not something you pick up in basic medic training." Before Mari could respond, the radio crackled with an encrypted transmission from the command post. Her training automatically decoded the frequency hopping pattern, Eagle 6 to all stations. Package delivery delayed until 1400. Security protocols remain in effect. Be advised, HUMINT suggests possible compromise. Mari's blood chilled. HUMINT, human intelligence. Someone on base was feeding information to the insurgents. And package delivery could only mean one thing, a high-value prisoner transfer. She forced herself to focus on the wounded soldier in front of her, but her mind was racing. The IED attack had been perfectly timed to hit the patrol at its most vulnerable point. Someone had provided detailed route information. "Mari." Doc's voice cut through her thoughts. "You saved Johnson's life. That arterial repair was flawless." She looked down at her hands, still steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "I just did what needed to be done." "No," Doc said quietly. "You did what a surgeon would do." 2 hours later, after the last casualty had been stabilized and evacuated, Mari found herself alone in the supply tent, taking inventory of their depleted medical stocks. She was field stripping her sidearm, a nervous habit that helped her think, when Tank Morrison's voice cut through the canvas wall like a blade. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Mari's hands froze on the M17's slide mechanism. Tank stood in the tent entrance, her pale eyes fixed on the disassembled weapon with laser intensity. Kenny was asking about weapon safety, Mari stammered, her cover identity reasserting itself. "I was just showing him how to properly clean." "Bullshit." Tank stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I've been watching you, medic. That's a 14-second field strip. Most soldiers can't break 20 seconds after months of practice. Mari's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced her hands to shake as she began reassembling the pistol with deliberately clumsy movements. I practiced a lot before deploying. Wanted to be prepared. Nobody gets that good from YouTube videos. Tank's eyes never left Mari's face. Who are you really? The question hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Mari met Tank's stare with what she hoped looked like confused innocence. I'm Staff Sergeant Marisol Ortega, 68W Combat Medic, service number. I don't give a damn about your service number. Tank's hand rested casually on her own sidearm. I've seen operators work, and you move like one. The way you handled that maskell, the way you just broke down that weapon, that's not medic training. Mari forced tears to her eyes, a trick she'd learned in SEER school. Look, I know I don't fit your idea of what a soldier should be, but I'm trying my best here. I just want to help people. For a long moment, Tank studied her face. Then something shifted in her expression, not belief, exactly, but a grudging uncertainty. Maybe. But I'll be watching you, Ortega. Something doesn't add up. As Tank left, Mari sat heavily on a supply crate, her hands trembling, not from fear, but from the effort of maintaining her cover under such intense scrutiny. She was trained to withstand interrogation by foreign intelligence services, but Tank's suspicion was more dangerous because it was personal, intuitive. That evening, during the communications blackout period when personal devices were permitted, Mari managed to intercept another encrypted transmission from Colonel Brick's command post. This time, she was ready with her modified tablet, its civilian appearance hiding military-grade decryption software. The message was brief but chilling: surgeon arriving 1400 tomorrow. Package extraction confirmed. Payment schedule as discussed. The surgeon. Mari's blood turned to ice. That was the operational codename for Qasim al-Baghdadi, a high-level Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks across 3 provinces. If he was coming to FOB Phoenix, it could only mean one thing: someone was planning to free whatever high-value prisoner was being transferred. And someone on this base was helping them. Mari closed her eyes, running through the possibilities. Who had access to patrol routes? Who could delay prisoner transfers? Who could coordinate timing with external actors? The list was disturbingly short. She opened her secure communication app and typed a message that would be bounced through 3 satellite relays before reaching ISA headquarters. Leona Zhu reporting. Operation Nightfall may be compromised. Request immediate extraction authority. The response came back within minutes: negative. Mission parameters unchanged. Identify the leak. Protect the asset. Mari stared at the screen until it automatically deleted the message. She was on her own, with a cover that was rapidly deteriorating and a mole hunt that could expose her at any moment. Outside, the base settled into its nighttime routine. Guard shifts changed with mechanical precision. Radio chatter followed established protocols. Everything appeared normal. But Mari could feel the storm building. Tomorrow would bring the prisoner transfer, the surgeon's arrival, and very likely, the moment when her carefully constructed identity would finally shatter. She just hoped she'd be ready when it did. The attack began at 1347 hours, 13 minutes before the prisoner transport was scheduled to arrive. Mari was checking 4 drips when the first mortar round whistled overhead, followed by the distinctive crack of AK-47 fire from the eastern perimeter. The base alarm shrieked as soldiers scrambled for defensive positions. All medical personnel, prepare for casualties. Doc Shepard's voice carried over the chaos. Mari, start prepping the trauma bay. But Mari's attention was fixed on something else entirely: Colonel Brick speaking quietly into a handheld radio by the command post, his words lost in the din of battle. She'd seen that radio before, during her surveillance. It wasn't standard issue. Kenny, she called to the young private who was helping her move supplies. Take over here. Follow the TCCC protocols we practiced. Where are you going? Kenny's eyes were wide with the controlled panic of his first real firefight. Just need to check something. Mari slipped out of the medical tent, moving with the fluid efficiency of someone who belonged in combat zones. She approached the command post from the blind spot she'd memorized on her first day, pressing herself against the prefab wall. Through a gap in the canvas, she could see Brick hunched over his radio, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. 15 minutes late, but they're still coming. Yes, the package is secure. Payment better be worth this. Mari's blood turned to ice. Brick wasn't coordinating the base defense, he was talking to the attackers. The radio crackled with a response in accented English. The surgeon is pleased. Your debt is forgiven, Colonel. And your family remains safe. Mari closed her eyes, pieces falling into place. Gambling debts. Blackmail. Brick's nervousness during the prisoner briefings. He'd been feeding intelligence to the Taliban for weeks, maybe months. She started to back away, but froze when she heard footsteps approaching. 3 figures emerged from the smoke and dust, Captain Razor, Rafe Calderon, and Doc Shepard, all armed and moving with purpose toward the command post. Sir. Razor called out as they approached. We need your authorization to. The handheld radio in Brick's hand crackled again, loud enough for everyone to hear. Package extraction in 5 minutes. All units converge on target. The silence stretched like a taut wire about to snap. Colonel, Doc's voice was carefully neutral. Who are you talking to? Brick's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, calculation, resignation. When he reached for his sidearm, Mari was already moving. Stand down, all of you. Brick's M17 came up, trained on the group. I said stand down. Sir, Razor's hand moved toward his weapon. What the hell is going on? The colonel's been feeding intelligence to the Taliban, Mari said, stepping into the open. Her voice had dropped an octave, the El Paso accent completely gone. He's been compromised. All 4 men turned to stare at her. Brick's eyes narrowed. What did you say, Sergeant? I said you're a traitor, sir. Mari's posture had shifted subtly, balanced, ready. How much did they pay you? Or was it just the threats? Brick's laugh was bitter. You have no idea what you're talking about, little girl. Get back to your bandages before someone gets hurt. The only person getting hurt, Mari said quietly, is whoever tries to stop me from protecting that prisoner. Razor drew his sidearm, but aimed it at Mari, not Brick. Whoa, hold on. The colonel's not. The colonel just coordinated this entire attack, Mari continued, her eyes never leaving Brick's face. He delayed the prisoner transport to give the surgeon time to organize a rescue. He's been selling us out. Doc stepped forward, his medical bag clutched in white-knuckled hands. Mari, you're confused. The stress of combat. I'm not confused. Mari's voice was steel wrapped in silk. And I'm not Mari. That's when Brick made his move, bringing his weapon to bear on her center mass. He was fast for a 52-year-old infantry colonel. Mari was faster. Second one, the scalpel left her fingers before Brick's trigger finger could apply pressure, the surgical steel biting deep into his wrist. His shot went wide. Second two, she rolled left as Razor tried to acquire her with his sidearm, his SEAL training making him the most dangerous threat. Second three, the force stand became a fulcrum as she grabbed it and swung hard, the metal base catching Razor in the solar plexus and driving him backward. Second four, Rafe was moving now, but toward cover, not attack, good instincts. Second five, Doc lunged forward, trying to restrain her, his medical training making him want to help everyone. Mari redirected his momentum with a hip toss that sent him stumbling. Second six, the portable defibrillator was in her hands, charge building. Second seven, Razor was recovering, bringing his weapon back up. The defibrillator pads slammed against his vest as Mari triggered the discharge. 360 joules sent him convulsing to the ground. Second 8, Mari's own M17 appeared in her hand, when had she drawn it, trained on the remaining threats. Nobody move. The transformation was complete. Gone was the nervous medic who stammered when questioned. In her place stood someone else entirely, someone who moved like liquid violence and spoke with the quiet authority of command. I am Major Leona Zhu, Army Intelligence Support Activity. Her voice cut through the distant sounds of battle like a blade. This base is now under ISA operational control. Brick cradled his wounded wrist, staring at her with something that might have been respect. Isa. Should have known. You've been under surveillance for 6 weeks, Colonel. Your gambling debts, the threats against your family, the leaked patrol routes, we know everything. Doc Shepard picked himself up from the ground, his face a mask of confusion and betrayal. Mari. Leona, who are you really? I'm someone who keeps people alive, document. Just not the way you thought. Rafe emerged from behind a concrete barrier, his weapon lowered but ready. The accent, the nervous habits, the medical questions, it was all performance. The medical knowledge was real, Leona said. Everything else was what you needed to see. In the distance, the sound of rotors announced the arrival of the prisoner transport, running exactly on schedule despite Brick's attempts to delay it. The coordinated attack was collapsing as the Taliban realized their inside information had dried up. Razor will be fine, Leona continued, checking his pulse while keeping her weapon trained on Brick. The defibrillator was set to stun, not kill. Doc, I need you to treat the Colonel's wrist. And Rafe. Yes, ma'am. The formality in his voice acknowledged the shift in dynamics. Mari Ortega was gone. Major Leona Zhu was in command. Help me secure this base. We have a prisoner to protect and a mole to process. As the last echoes of gunfire faded from the perimeter, Leona allowed herself a small smile. The cover was blown, but the mission was complete. FOB Phoenix was secure, the prisoner transfer would proceed, and the surgeon's rescue attempt had failed. Now came the hardest part, living with the consequences of becoming herself again. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across FOB Phoenix as the dust settled, literally and figuratively. The Taliban assault had been repelled with minimal casualties, the high-value prisoner was secure aboard the transport helicopter disappearing into the Afghan sky, and Colonel Raymond Brick Callahan sat in flex cuffs awaiting transport to Bagram for court-martial proceedings. Major Leona Zhu stood in the medical tent, no longer needing to hunch her shoulders or soften her voice. The transformation was remarkable. Where Staff Sergeant Mari Ortega had been self-effacing and nervous, Leona commanded the space with quiet authority. Your wrist will heal fine, Colonel, she said, checking Brick's bandaged wound with the same gentle hands that had thrown the scalpel. Tendon damage was minimal. Brick met her eyes without flinching. You're good, Major. Damn good. How long were you planning this? 6 months of preparation. 3 years tracking your financial vulnerabilities. Leona's tone was professional, but not unkind. For what it's worth, I believe you when you say they threatened your family. Doesn't excuse what I did. Brick's voice was hollow. How many soldiers died because of the intelligence I leaked? 17 confirmed Kia, 43 wounded. The numbers came without hesitation, she'd memorized every casualty report. But stopping you here saved hundreds more. Captain Blake Razor Trenholm approached cautiously, his vest still scorched from the defibrillator contact. His earlier arrogance had been replaced by something resembling humility. Major, he said, offering a proper salute. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. Leona returned the salute crisply. Your tactical response was solid, Captain. You identified me as the primary threat and engaged appropriately. I identified you as a hysterical medic and nearly got everyone killed. Razor shook his head. Those weren't combat reflexes, that was prejudice. You tried to warn us about the Colonel, and I drew on you instead of listening. Lesson learned? Yes, ma'am. Won't happen again. Dr. Malcolm Shepard emerged from the tent where he'd been treating minor casualties from the firefight. His face was a complex mixture of admiration and hurt. The medical knowledge was real, he said. It wasn't a question. Combat surgeon training, Johns Hopkins Fellowship, 3 years of battlefield medicine. Leona's expression softened slightly. Everything I taught Kenny, every procedure we discussed, that was genuine. But the rest? The rest was what the mission required. She paused. I meant what I said, document. About wanting to keep people alive. That part was never fake. Kenny Way appeared at Doc's shoulder, clutching the name tape Mari had given him days earlier, Ortega in faded black letters on woodland camouflage. So there never was a Mari Ortega? His voice cracked slightly. Leona knelt to his eye level, her command presence gentling. There was. For 3 days, she was real. She cared about teaching you first aid, worried about everyone's safety, and genuinely enjoyed the friendships she made here. But you're not her. I'm someone who learned from her. Leona smiled, the first completely authentic expression she'd allowed herself since arriving. Keep studying, Kenny. Become the medic Mari believed you could be. Staff Sergeant Rafael Calderon had been watching the exchanges with quiet assessment. Now he stepped forward and rendered a textbook salute. Major, permission to speak freely? Granted, Sergeant. I knew something was off about you from day one. The way you moved, the questions you asked, the way you cataloged everything. His smile was grudging but genuine. But I also knew you gave a damn about the people here. That wasn't performance. No, Leona agreed. That wasn't. Even Staff Sergeant Patricia Tank Morrison approached, her usual hostility replaced by professional respect. I was wrong about you, Tank said simply. You're not soft. You're steel wrapped in velvet. High praise from you, Sergeant. Earned praise, ma'am. The sound of rotor blades announced Leona's extraction helicopter, a Black Hawk with ISA markings, conspicuously unmarked except for a small Griffin decal on the fuselage. As she shouldered her gear bag, Leona looked around at the faces that had become familiar, complicated, real. For 3 days, she'd experienced something she'd forgotten was possible, belonging somewhere not because of her rank or clearance level, but because people simply cared about her welfare. Major? Kenny's voice was small. Will we ever see you again? Leona considered the question seriously. Probably not as Leona Zhu. But if you ever need a medic who knows a few extra tricks. She left the sentence hanging. Doc Shepard extended his hand. It was an honor working with you, whoever you are. The honor was mine, document. Take care of these soldiers. As the Black Hawk lifted off, Leona watched FOB Phoenix shrink below her. In 12 hours, it would be officially closed, its personnel scattered to new assignments across the theater. The base would become another footnote in the long history of American military operations in Afghanistan. But for Leona, it would always be the place where she remembered that being strong didn't mean being alone, and that the best cover stories were built on foundations of truth. She opened her secure tablet and began typing her after-action report, but paused at the section marked Personal Assessment of Operation. After a long moment, she wrote, Mission accomplished. Asset protected. Personnel gained valuable counterintelligence experience. Recommend continued monitoring of similar vulnerabilities across CENTCOM. She didn't write about Kenny's determination to become a better medic, or Doc's paternal pride in her progress, or Rafe's protective instincts, or even Razor's hard-earned lesson in humility. Some intelligence was too valuable to share with headquarters. As the helicopter banked toward Bagram Airfield, Major Leona Zhu closed her eyes and allowed herself to remember, just for a moment, what it had felt like to be Mari Ortega, the medic who stammered when nervous and cared too much about everyone's safety. She'd been a good cover identity. Maybe the best Leona had ever created. And maybe, in some small way, she'd been real after all. If you enjoyed Leona's story, hit that like button and subscribe for more action-packed stories. What military thriller should I create next? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.